Welcome to Travel Again Presents, the weekly travel roundup covering the headwinds and tailwinds impacting the business of travel. Please welcome our hosts, Mike McCormick and Ed Silver. Hello, Mike. Welcome to episode 7, season 2. Cannot believe it.
I know. It's hard to believe. It goes so fast.
It does go fast. And as you can imagine, we record a couple episodes a week these days. And so, Mike, I'm going to bust right into it today. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
All right, Mike, this is election week here in the U.S. And article number 1 is Trump wins the election in both electoral count, and they're still working on the popular count, but it does seem like he will win that as well. Mike, let's talk about what does this mean for travel in general, and any other thoughts you have about this fairly historic win.
Well, look, travel is bipartisan. It drives every other industry. But as we go through this process now, the election is wrapping up and, vote counts and everything are being finalized and certified. But the realities are then the next step is, leadership, agendas, priorities are all being reset and determined. A lot of that work does get done or in kind of preparation for what will happen after the election to get a head start on it. But the realities are this is the time when a lot of that now is really in, full force behind the scenes, right? As they get ready for the transition in leadership coming in January. So, look, we've got years of experience of working on the Hill and working on issues. Like I said, travel is bipartisan. We always say, travel in so many ways for our industry is, apple pie and motherhood when you're in talking to congressional leaders, to the White House, et cetera, and certainly to, the DOT and to all involved. Everybody appreciates and understands, I think, largely the impact that travel has, the importance of it, both in terms of jobs and the economy, et cetera, and all the stats are well known. However, there are always mostly unintended kind of ways or consequences to actions, bills, proposed rules that get put out there that do have an impact on our industry and potentially a really damaging one at times. And what's amazing to me, but also understandable, look, our elected officials are, dealing and all of the staff here working on, on this stuff in Washington, they're working on a whole range of issues, as we know, and they have to try to be, as much as they can, to some degree, experts in all of them, right? Because they're working on healthcare and foreign policy issues and, et cetera, et cetera. So sometimes things happen, bills get proposed, initiatives, put out that can have a positive effect on travel or a negative one, and on tourism, et cetera. And so what we're always trying to be mindful of and try to educate, those congressional leaders, et cetera, about the policies that are being created, the impact that they're having, and at times when there is a damaging, kind of unintended consequence to something, we're sounding the alarms and saying, "Hey, wait, you got to stop and take a look at what really is happening here."
So, Mike, one issue or bill we were tracking prior to the election was how the Credit Card Competition Act, otherwise known as the Durbin-Marshall Bill, could impact travel and credit card points. Does this election, now that it's just about over, have an impact on that in one way or another?
Well, yeah. So the bill, which we're starting to get word out and educate everyone on, is one that the intention is to basically find a way to, the stated objective is to lower the interchange fee, or basically the fees that businesses pay for the credit card transactions, offering alternative ways that those companies can process their transactions and not go through the all the traditional Visa, MasterCard, channels that they use today, but they have an opportunity to, have an alternative and/or keep those, with an objective of trying to lower those fees. The problem with that is that twofold. One is those fees haven't gone up in 10 years. So first off, it's not an immediate problem that needs to get solved. But the travel impact is huge and negative. It is one where basically what would happen is you take a revenue stream that was used to fund the points and all the benefits that consumers get back for spending, when they're spending on cards, and then used to go travel and to go and drives tourism. I mean, all the local economies, any local economy that has a tourism impact, when those points go away, if they go away, would have the downstream negative impact would be tremendous. And what we're trying to get the word out is that one, you're trying to solve a problem that's not a problem. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's problem number one. But problem number two is the devastating impact you would have here is just it's you're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars. For every 10% reduction in the revenue stream that's coming through, you're talking about over $4 billion impact on local economies just here in the US. So it's one of those where, again, if the intention was, hey, we're trying to do something to, with the intention of making it better for businesses, the realities are it isn't. And then the handful of businesses you're going to help, meaning like the Walmarts and the Targets and the Home Depots, et cetera, that will see possibly a reduction in their in the fees they're charged to process their credit card transactions. Everyone else loses. Small business loses, consumers lose, tourism industry gets hammered. I mean, it's just one of those, the trade-offs aren't there. I mean, it's not worth it.
But now that we're in kind of a lame duck session and a new regime coming in, should we still be worried about it, Mike?
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, is that the way it works is that even bills are proposed and get sponsored to go through on their merits. But if they don't have support, congressmen will try to attach it to something else that's being pushed through that might be part of maybe it's a budget resolution, or it's another bill that has bipartisan support and will get pushed through.
Even during this interim time, that can happen.
Oh, it can happen during a lame duck session. In fact, what they call it when you're in this period between leadership transition, it's actually could happen as much or more often than even during like an active congressional session, next year, because at that point that'll get filtered back into the bigger priorities, right? And more of the approach that gets taken, and it's kind of back to normal. This is one of those times where things can get pushed through. And the fact is that we need to be vigilant now, just as much now as we do in January or in June of next year, right? It's like just because everybody's breathing kind of a sigh of relief because they're not getting getting texts to donate to their campaign every 10 seconds, right? It doesn't mean that the business stops, and the business in Washington certainly doesn't.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on travel's impact due to this election at this stage, or
no, I mean, I think it's a wait. It's a wait and see. I think we'll do more work certainly on evaluating, analyzing, but I think we have to wait and see what the priorities truly are when they come January and February. And again, then we'll do the analytics to really try to understand any and all impact, positively or negatively, to travel, and try to make sure our voice is heard as an industry.
Okay. Well, we will keep our eyes on it. Okay, Mike, we will be right back with our guest. Mike, thanks to our sponsor, Safe Travel RX, an app that takes the worry off your itinerary, providing travel peace of mind with emergency response components, travel security, and risk management, especially for those traveling internationally. It includes 24/7 global concierge assistance. Landed in the hospital in China? Forgot your prescription? Wallet stolen? Safe Travel RX is your prescription for better, safer travel. Download it today to discover the power of Safe Travel RX, and reach out to them if you have interest in offering this tool to your travelers to provide them with the duty of care you are required to provide. Safe Travel RX, your prescription for better travel. All right, Mike, on to our guest today. I am super excited to see this gentleman back in our presence. Today, we will have Kurt Ekert, President and CEO of Sabre, on the show. Kurt was appointed CEO in April of 2023. He joined Sabre as president in January of 22, bringing 25 years of global operating leadership and governance experience in technology, travel, and tourism, and a track record of growth and turnaround performance. Before joining Sabre, Kurt spent 5 years as president and CEO of CWT, where he engineered a digital transformation while delivering significant growth, highlighted by $7 billion in new business wins. Kurt holds a BS from the Wharton School at the University of Penn, an MBA from the University of South Carolina, and saw active duty as a U.S. Army officer. Kurt, Mike, and I worked together during our years at Sendent. He is a pleasure to have on the show. Please welcome to the stage, Kurt Ekert. Hello, Kurt.
Hey, great to see you. And I recall knowing you when you were both very much younger men.
You look about the same. I think you look great, Kurt. You haven't aged one day.
I don't know what's happened, but time goes by, and that's a good thing.
It is good to see you, sir.
It does. Well, before we get started, I wore my Eagles jersey today on purpose because, of course, we have the big Eagles Dallas game on Sunday, and your Sabres headquartered in Dallas, of course. But I don't think you're a Cowboys fan.
Well, Mike, I grew up in New York and Philadelphia.
Right.
So I'm a giant New York Yankees fan. I'm mourning the loss of that the Yankees had against the Dodgers.
Yep.
And I moved to Pennsylvania when I was 7 years old, 1978, and was a little bit upset about moving to Pennsylvania. So as a rejection of all things Pennsylvania, I became a massive Dallas Cowboys fan as a young child. Back when, I remember
that is a betrayal.
Clark made the catch and they lost to the San Francisco 49ers. So unfortunately, and I will be at the game this Sunday, my Cowboys are not having a stellar season.
No. Disarray. They're in disarray, man.
It's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where we live, Kurt. My kids are required to root for the Eagles or they sleep in the woods, and they know that.
Yeah, Philadelphia fans are known as being the harshest, most challenging fans in the world.
We're loyal. Indeed. We're just loyal.
We're proud.
We're proud and loyal, and I don't know. Well, we'll see. This is hey, look. I mean, Washington, the Commanders are coming out of nowhere, so they're giving us, all run for they're the surprise certainly of our division. But
yeah, they're terrific.
Yeah. We'll see. But anyway, I wore it for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I would have pegged. See, I would have, with all the New York, New Jersey in all these years, I would have pegged you more as a Giants fan.
Giants fan, yeah.
But my dad was. I rebelled.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's certainly rebellion. Well, again, thanks for coming on. Just before we get into the issues, I mean, I guess a little bit of look, we've known you for a long time, and you've had, senior leadership roles at an airline back in Continental days, TMC. We knew each other. Worked together at Sendent with Travelport, then on to CWT, and now Sabre. What drew you to the role? Why'd you take it? What appealed about jumping into to Sabre a couple of years ago?
Yeah. So first of all, in my experience, I was an executive at Orbitz. Was the CEO of GTA, which was the biggest hotel wholesaler. Suffice to say, that means I'm just getting older than I was. And it's interesting. I had known Sabre for so many years, mainly as a competitor, more recently as a customer. And in all my years in the industry, I saw Sabre as having a very compelling market position, being quite commercially astute. But as I looked at Sabre, and this was back in basically the second half of 2021, what I saw as a company that I didn't believe was innovating at the pace perhaps that they used to. And I thought there was a real opportunity with how dynamic and changing the marketplace is to really try to do something unique and impactful here. And so I was attracted to the opportunity to drive what I saw as a transformation turnaround opportunity at Sabre. I had thought I was retired after my last role, but it was during COVID. My kids were out at school. And so I saw this as just a unique one-time opportunity challenge, and really happy that I decided to say yes to this.
Well, you're right. I mean, the legacy of Sabre was one where it was always the thought of as, the kind of the bellwether for certainly for any agency doing corporate travel. To your point about the innovative part, either by acquisition, but also just in terms of being a workhorse, for the whole industry. I mean, Sabre was, really in a it was at that time in a real leadership position,
Right.
back in the day. I mean, to your point of, with that changing, that not innovating at the same pace, losing ground, and different changing marketplace. But then to your point, and that's what we'll get into a little bit, the changes that we're in the midst of right now, really opportunity is there to reset the table. And well, let's start with airline pricing, with NDC, with everything there. Like, what's the current status with Sabre? You've got a few outliers like Turkish Frontier saying, no, and doing at times from the outside looking in, it's like, is that more about negotiating, or is that really about a position they're taking where they're trying to basically do direct only in their business? But, where do you see Sabre in this whole environment right now? Give us the update on all that.
Yes, we should think about pricing and distribution. Certainly what's happening with B2B or intermediary airline distribution is airlines want to market and retail in the intermediary channel as dynamically as they've learned how to do in the B2C channel. And to me, that's fundamentally what NDC or continuous pricing are really all about. And so let me start with what Sabre's doing from an airline-facing perspective.
Right.
If you think about the Sabre of old, which was the GDS, the Global Distribution System, it was the world of EDIFACT, fair filing, very efficient, super transaction capabilities, but didn't necessarily support what the airlines were trying to do as well as they want to do it. So we're doing a couple of things that are quite dramatic. Number one is we're building a multi-source air content platform that enables us to consume content, whether it's EDIFACT, NDC, or the traditional low-cost carrier long-tail content that was never in the GDS, perhaps maybe was in Travel Fusion for an agency.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to dynamically consume any of that content wherever it's exposed. It feeds through the same pricing algorithms, the same caching solutions, and then there are dramatic improvements in what we've done from a workflow integration and automation standpoint for the agency. So for the airline, however you want to expose your content, through a legacy API, through a new API, and whether you're a traditional distributor or not, we're able to consume that content. And what we bring are, I think, probably the highest conversion channel of any channel available to airlines in the world. Number two is we bring premium eyeballs. So when you look at the average fare or the average yield to an airline of distributing through us, it's greater through the GDSs than it is through any other channel. And because we have a very strong TMC and corporate footprint, we actually provide a premium even to our two largest GDS competitors. So basically, it's a very efficient vehicle, qualified eyeballs, and high yield. And we do that for a cost of sale that typically is 1% to 2% of the price that the airline's charging. By most accounts, that's a very efficient form of distribution. And so we're working very hard to make sure that the way airlines want to merchandise and retail and do that more dynamically, we believe will be the best vehicle for them over time. From an agency or buyer perspective, whether this is corporation, TMC, OTA, and they think about this, the same reason that people shop at Amazon or that financial analysts use a Bloomberg and don't try to access that data all by themselves, is they want efficient access to choice, transparency, and basically a plethora of content. So what we do for them is we bring that to them with transparency, with choice, and we integrate it in a way that works in their environment to drive efficiency. I can remember, for example, when I was at CWT and we looked at a booking that was done outside of the GDS, for example, in Travel Fusion or mediums like that, on average, in terms of the difference in the revenue model, and then two, loss in productivity, it cost substantially more, or it was substantially dilutive to do an air transaction outside of the GDS. That would apply for a direct connect. That would apply to using a third-party plugin. And think about it this way. If you're in finance and you're using a Bloomberg and a piece of data exits Bloomberg, you can still go get that data from the marketplace. But it's going to be less efficient for you than having it at your fingertips in that display. We're no different. And the bad analogy I'll use, and I'll say it's bad because I developed it, is if you went back to 2005 and you were in the position of being a cable television company,
Yeah.
and you were in the catbird seat, and you foresaw the coming of streaming. And what you did is you said, we're going to basically consolidate cable media content, new media content, whether it's on demand or live. We're going to have different commercial models. We'll normalize that, and then we'll present that in your traditional interfaces, the television, or through any medium that you want. I think right now you'd have basically a platform where the consumer experience would be superior to what any of us can get in the marketplace, because that does not exist. And from a media standpoint, you'd have a very efficient, easy way to distribute your content, as opposed to all these streaming services and cable, which are very fragmented today, don't provide the best consolidated user experience. I think done properly, we have the opportunity to redefine this, where the GDS is a very important component of the platform that we provide, but it's just that, it's a component. So I think that when people talk about the GDS and they say that is synonymous with EDIFACT, I think that's a misnomer. That's now a component of a much larger set of capabilities that we offer. So you do hear noise in the marketplace about various content.
Yeah.
I think over time that we are literally the best intermediary platform with the greatest value available to any airline in the world.
Well, and I'll, in support of that, some of that, I mean, look, it's always been, just in whatever form, the GDS always has been capturing the long tail of all of these suppliers, all of the, airlines, hotels, cargo companies, like, again, back in one place. I think it's a really interesting analogy because, I look at what's happened now to your point about media, where you have all these separate streaming services. You may or may not still be, plugging into your local cable offering anyway. You're paying all these different fees. There's businesses that have cropped up that are just solely about doing an analysis to show you why you're losing money because you're paying all these, different fees. I mean, it's become ridiculous that's where we are right now. And, there's a reckoning coming, and almost you can see it almost coming full circle. And for those of us, been around in the travel industry, we've also seen that kind of full circle around the GDS and the role of, the intermediary that, again, back to your point of it's about, yes, I can go consume and find all that content other places, or, well, not all of it, but a good 80% of it. But I can't, but with what lack of efficiency there, what cost, the time, again, it's not efficient to do that. It's not even like possible to do it in a way and serve your customer.
But put efficiency aside for a second, Kurt, maybe even using your analogy, the user experience that you get through some of the streaming services is way beyond what a traditional medium could provide. So applying that to your business model, do you think that the true kind of end goal of NDC around personalization, dynamic offers, bundles with ancillaries, and a fantastic user experience that matches or is better than a direct.com can provide, will folks be able to consume that from Sabre and provide that experience?
Yeah. So in the intermediary channel, which is what we're talking about here, Ed, it's a great question. Our focus through the multi-source content platform, and NDC is a big part of that, the use of AI-driven algorithms, et cetera, lots of automation, is that think about how dynamic the airline is in their B2C channel, where they have full control of the experience with the end user.
Yeah.
We will be able to replicate that for the airline in terms of the way they distribute retail merchandise. And from an end user standpoint, it's going to look and feel much like an e-commerce experience. But remember that whether that's expressed through an API and it's the OTAs and traveler, or maybe it's a travel counselor for a TMC,
right?
There's a tremendous amount of business logic that we have to put there in terms of preferencing, workflow integration, the way we understand the profile of the traveler, et cetera. So there's a lot of utilities that the travel agent or the buyer provides to the consumer. And that adds a layer and a different experience than what the airline direct offers. And there's a reason that I always say people choose to shop at Amazon for Nike, or that Nike's distributes through Amazon. It's because they have a lot of eyeballs that's where people choose to buy their shoes. They are Zappos, for example. And for those travelers, Nike says, I want exposure to those eyeballs. We offer, I think, the same utility in the intermediary channel. But yeah, I can tell you we're already largely there in terms of with NDC or with modern API distribution. We consume that, we on redistribute it. Now, the difference is if you're a consumer and you want choice and transparency, you may not want to shop at airline.com. You may want to shop a more robust set of airline content, and we're able to do that and make sure that it's very relevant for your search result. So I actually think that we are literally the best intermediary platform that's out there.
Okay.
Because and on that, I had to bring it up because I love the phrase you coined, rate vomit. When you're talking about hotel rates on like any given night, it's like you use it to describe like 600 plus hotel rate codes at any night for a property. That's the part I get excited about when I think about what AI can do and the business logic you're talking about you have these like way too many choices, and for the consumer and even for the agent serving the consumer, the ability to have that logic actually distill it down just to, let's say, a range of choices that are actually usable and appropriate and meet the needs of the buyer, the customer, the traveler, and the seller. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. I mean, to your point, right? I think we're heading down that path.
We come at the hotel side. I didn't coin rate vomit, by the way. I've heard that before, but I think the challenge if you're the consumer or the end user is because of the fragmentation of hotel distribution. It can be confusing trying to beat the travel agent or find the best spot rate in the market.
Right.
So we come at this sort of two ways. One is with our hospitality solutions business, which is where we provide IT to hoteliers. And then two is in our distribution business, where we're basically providing the connectivity bridge between sellers and buyers. And so let me speak about that in two components. Number one is on the IT front. What we're up to, we have the leading CRS platform in the marketplace. We have an emerging PMS platform. And as we've talked about, we have a set of technologies we call Retail Studio, what Retail Studio does is enable the hotelier at a property level to sell any attribute or any of its wares within its four walls. And then anything else that it wants. It can sell its restaurant, it can sell sightseeing next door. It allows them to do that with unlimited SKUs through literally any channel. And there's a messaging service, for example, that would say, oh, Mike wants a bottle of champagne. How do we fulfill that and get it to Mike's room?
Right.
And so we provide that holistic solution. And the idea is, as literally, if you're running a hotel and you're looking at RevPAR, which is becoming more and more challenged as development slows down, and the pricing environment may not be as robust as it's been for the last couple of years, is hotels need to grow their same-store sales. So what we think we're going to offer them is a retail-like experience that they can bring to the consumer. And so we're doing really powerful stuff on the hotel side of this. But then we think about it downstream from a buyer perspective, trying to understand the spot rates, whether you have a retail rate, a corporate negotiated rate, maybe your rates in Expedia or Booking. You may have proprietary content, stuff through hotel beds. And the terms around those rates may be very different. What we've done there, and we have a really strong leader named Chin Mai, who's leading this for us, is we have built a platform, not dissimilar to what we've done with Air, which integrates all these disparate sources of content. And think about content as rates, availability, and then all of the media around that. We have an engine then that when you shop, normalizes that. So we provide a very relevant search response. And we can show you at, the Hotel McCormick, a 4-star property, we can show you the like-for-like silver property across the street that's very similar. And then within the McCormick property, we can basically break out and say, here's the 6 different types of rate codes you're at, and you can drill down on those. So the idea is you're able to understand the spot pricing that's in the market and basically take advantage of that. And so, it's a challenge I think for hotels, because there's certain things that are done at the CRS or the chain level. Sometimes there are different pricing decisions made or distribution decisions made at the property level. But as the end user, you're trying to get through all of that challenge. And so I think that we have good solutions both on the distribution and on the IT front. But I think you're going to see hotels become even better at this as they go forward. You're seeing basically a lot of traction happening with hotel tech, where hotels are basically beginning to adopt enterprise software solutions that enable them to become great at what they do, which is running their operation, being great at marketing, but not trying to perhaps to build their own technology if they don't have to.
Right. And so with everything coming with, certainly as we start bringing kind of a AI agent to the picture, right? And like putting that overlay on top of everything. I know, you announced about Sabre Mosaic and the work you're doing there, but that's the part to me. It starts, it gets exciting about accelerating some of these capabilities because again, now you're putting, a front end on it that, could and actually could ultimately be somewhat really disruptive to the existing kind of distribution environment we're in. Some thoughts about all that. First, maybe a little bit, two parts. One, talk a little bit about Mosaic and what you're doing there, but also, longer term outlook for the agency community. What, in your mind, what does it look like? We've always been talking about the demise of the agent and the GDS,
Right.
but that we're still all here. So
yeah, let me step back, Mike, and talk
Yep.
AI first, then I'll get into Sabre
Yep.
Mosaic. So
Yep.
we've been at work long before I arrived at Sabre with leveraging large language models, and I'll call it traditional AI.
Right.
And that's embedded, for example, in our pricing and revenue management solutions pretty well. I think we're on the cutting edge of that. Over the past year or so, we've made extensive use leveraging generative AI, and we have a deep partnership with Google, and therefore Google's Gemini platform is sort of our primary vehicle for that.
Right.
And when you think about the applications for our business or a travel agent, I would think about a few. The obvious ones are the productivity of your customer service engagement. For example, there's a lot that maybe is manual today where AI can take the place of either the person or the automation you have and do a better job and upgrade the user experience.
Right.
With developer productivity, basically Gemini can write code and you could put your engineers in a position of being more quality checkers where they're adding value, but some of the lower level tasks perhaps are performed by AI. That has the opportunity to drive significantly increased development throughput versus what we've known traditionally. And I think the thing that's going to change fundamentally is the consumer experience, whether this is corporate or in leisure. The way you research, shop for, and engage when you're buying or consuming travel, I think that's fundamentally going to change. And now the fulfillment part will always be a challenge, and AI can't necessarily get around that. But the shopping experience, which is what's out there available, how do I present that to you in a compelling, relevant fashion, and how do you then consume that? I think for everybody that's out there, they're going to have to become very good. Whether you're an OTA, whether you're a TMC, you're going to have to become a modern e-commerce retailer. And AI is the tip of the spear there. And so what's the future for the agent community? Look, there are a number of agents. There's OTAs, there's TMCs, there are these large leisure players who have captive corporate card audiences. You have a lot of different boutique type of enterprises focused on cruise or other things. So there's a very big, thriving travel agent community. But I think as you look at what's happened with OTAs, I think that's a good proxy for what's going to happen across the rest of the travel agent ecosystem in all channels. And that is scale is going to matter. And scale matters for a couple of reasons. Number one is the ability to continuously test in your environment and then implement new solutions. The larger you are, the more flexibility you have to do this. Yeah. Number two is in a world of content fragmentation, scale matters in terms of the ability to drive relevance to suppliers. And that's going to matter more and more going forward. And last and most important, if you're running a travel agent, you are in a technology arms race today, whether you realize it or not. And the larger you are, as you invest capital in whether it's AI or different type of solutions that matter to the customer or matter in terms of your ability to monetize the eyeballs that you serve, if you have scale, you can amortize those investments over a wide swath of transactions. If you're smaller, it's much harder to make those investments at scale. And so I think whether it's through consolidation or organic growth, you're going to see the larger folks be able to innovate at a faster pace, perhaps, than folks who are subscale. And AI is going to really change the game where the pace at which you can accelerate from the field will be very different than what it was historically. So switching gears to Sabre Mosaic, well before I arrived at Sabre, we were underway with the development of a new platform, which is offer and order, effectively a new platform that will over time replace the PSS of old for airlines.
Got it.
And so Sabre Mosaic is now in market. I think we have more products in production as part of Sabre Mosaic than any other offer and order platform that's been introduced to market. We've won our first couple of lead customers in Virgin Australia and Riyadh. We're in a lot of other conversations, but this is a really cool platform. So first of all, it's fully cloud native. It is fully modular and open. It is PSS agnostic, meaning it can sit on top of Sabre Sonic, Altea, any proprietary system. It can be bought in components or in overall. And Google's Gemini AI is embedded, and we're continuously upgrading with that. So this is going to enable airlines to dramatically improve, to your question earlier, their ability to behave as efficient e-commerce retailers. And so the offer side of this, I think, is going to get traction very, very quickly. The order side, which is effectively a fundamental replacement of the PSS, for a network carrier that may have hundreds of applications or systems hanging off of the PSS, that's a multi-year major transformation effort.
Right.
And so I think that whereas IATA has said that's going to happen by 2030 en masse for the industry, I think the timeline for order is going to be a longer horizon than that. But I think, in the course of 15 years, that is certainly going to happen.
Right.
Because it's just the technology is so much better and more nimble than what sits there today.
Well, and in all that, I mean, that's certainly one of the, kind of, I guess, analysis. We were looking at the marketplace and saying, to your point about scale and investment, I mean, this is a big money game to do this, right? To make those kinds of investments, to bring the technology forward. It's not. It feels like the industry is kind of evolve two ways. Meaning, you're going to have large players, and then you're going to have smaller boutique players. They're going to be aligned. They're going to be serving, collecting, aggregating demand at a smaller boutique level. The middle is going to be tough because if you're, too big to be small, too small to be big kind of thing, because just the investment that's going to be required to keep going. But back to the point of then the reliance back on companies like yours to do that and then provide those. You can't do it on your own, so you're going to need to license and you leverage off of capabilities you're building. That's
I think
going to
you're
be the
spot on,
hard part.
Mike. And the way just to show how sexy I can be at 53 years old, the way I talk about the business is that Sabre is the technology plumbing of the travel industry.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but most people, plumbing, being a plumber may not be what everybody wants to do as they think about themselves as technology companies. We think we can do it for our customer base, whether it's suppliers or whether it's buyers, and bring a great solution to them at very efficient economics. So, and over time, as we innovate, we think the value we provide will be greater and greater. Of course, you're going to, look, customers have choice. The market will discipline those who don't innovate at pace.
Yeah.
Our focus is innovating and delivering on our commitments.
Hey, good plumbers make good money too, man.
That's right.
They do.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, last earnings call, you called Sabre a very different company today. We've talked a lot about all that, but what does that, if you kind of distill it down, what does that mean to you? And where do you, where do you see Sabre long term as this all evolves?
Yeah. So first of all, our ethos and our purpose is to be customer obsessed. As a pure B2B play, we are only as good as the value that we bring to and through our customer base. Yep. We've driven a culture here of empowerment, innovation, and performance. As you look at the executive leadership table of Sabre, there's not a single person at my table that was there at the start of COVID. So culturally and in terms of the leadership ranks, it's a very different place than it was historically. And then strategically, we lean into three key areas. Number one is modernization of our technology. We're now 99% in the cloud from a compute perspective.
Yeah.
We're building things that are modular and open. We're leveraging AI. We are highly resilient, highly stable. We've got great security protocols. And so we're really moving in the direction of being a leading enterprise software company. Sabre was one of the first SaaS companies ever created in the world.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways we're returning to those roots. Number two is as we think about our IT businesses, which is Air IT and then Hospitality Solutions, it's leveraging our PSS and CRSs and then really modernizing the retail experience. And so we're doing that in hospitality through the Retail Studio suite of products, and then in airline IT through Sabre Mosaic. So it's taking our customers in the marketplace on a journey to accomplish what they want. Yeah. And then the last is distribution, which is the largest piece of our business. This is not your grandmother's GDS anymore. We're building an open market. with a multi-source air platform, with best-in-class hotel distribution and media capabilities, with modern digital payments capabilities through our Confirma virtual payments asset, and we're aggressively going after the share in the marketplace. And so I think we're playing offense, and we realize that for us to succeed, this is all about innovation and being a proper tech and software company. But we're doing things just at a very different pace. We're winning in the marketplace. As I compare the customer relationships we have today to when I joined the company, they're really on the upswing, and we're in a much healthier place than we were historically. And that gets down to, one, valuing the customers properly, and more importantly, delivering on what we say we're going to do and innovating so that they know that we're the platform that they want to be on long term. For me, I do this by choice. I'm very fortunate, and it's about working with people I deeply trust and respect. And I can tell you, we're loaded with cadre of people like that.
That's great. Yeah, and to your point of, you're very much, as we are in the travel industry, it's a community, right? And you have to be able to bring, in a B2B business like this, you got to bring everybody along for the ride, right? It's not, even if you make those advancements, even if with the things you're doing culturally, the way you communicate, work with your customers, that's old school stuff that never tires, man. It's still what matters the most.
We've got to earn the trust of our customers every single day and never take that for granted.
Yep. So wrap up question. This is for season 2 is, what's your guilty pleasure when you're on the road?
Well, first of all, let me say that for those of you listening, business travel is not always glamorous.
Really?
No, for example, I'll be in our Poland office next week, and then I'll be at Confirma in Manchester, England. So I'll take a red eye. I'll be sleep deprived. I'm excited to see all of my colleagues around the world. But so one of the things that I really value is making sure that I eat relatively well, try to get some workouts in. But I'd say my guilty pleasures are the limited times and space I have to go on long walks, especially in cool cities I get to go to. And then number 2 is, once or twice a year, my really guilty pleasure is I'll get a massage if it's a nice hotel with a cool spa. And I do feel guilty when I get that done.
A true guilty pleasure. That's good, Kurt.
Well, Kurt, again, thanks for joining us today. A lot of terrific insight. Great to hear the progress you're making with Sabre. And, we say it whenever, as we talk to leaders around the industry, our industry is a terrific industry, but also always needs, terrific leaders to have, to take the message out there and to represent our industry well. And you're certainly one of them. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, guys, thank you so much, and congrats on the podcast and everything you're doing.
Thank you to Kurt Ekert, President, CEO of Sabre. Kurt, great to see you.
Thanks.
All right, Mike, we'll be right back with headwinds and tailwinds.
Yeah, so as always, we'd like to take a few minutes and talk about Travel Again Advisory and our advisory practice. Travel Again Advisory brings clarity to complex issues, infuses creativity into solutions, and elevates your company to a whole new level of competitiveness in today's dynamic travel world. Our practice focuses on 2 key areas: improving results and maximizing shareholder value. We work with a number of companies around the space and have a long list of terrific relationships that we've worked on, both in terms of helping companies with transactions, with their business plans, their long-term strategies, their go-to-market plan. Any place where you need help, you've got let's say an underperforming asset or an underperforming part of your business, we're happy to help and come in and really make a difference in making that a better part of your offering. But all in all, it doesn't matter whether you're early stage or an established company in the space. If you need help, give us a call, and we certainly can, bring our experience to you.
All right, thanks for that, Mike. And now we will wrap with headwinds and tailwinds, where we identify what we think is adding value to travel or taking it away. Mike, you're up first with headwinds.
Well, the headwind, actually an interesting one. It's about the UK regulators in their preliminary findings were saying that the Amex GBT CWT deal would lessen competition. And I always get frustrated by some of these analysis like that. I think it is a real headwind. We just had the whole conversation about how the marketplace is changing and how much that scale does matter, but not from a sense of controlling the market or creating a decreasing competition. This is about just normal, like, consolidation, that where you've got two companies coming together, adding some additional volume that actually, would help spur more investment back into the very things we were just talking about in this podcast.
Yeah.
I think I get frustrated because I think those evaluations are done almost on a very old set of criteria. They're not looking at where the marketplace is and where it's going so much, is kind of using, I think, at times, a kind of a dated approach to looking at what the marketplace is. We've seen it time and time again where the regulators have kind of gotten involved and said there's an issue. And then it's one of those where you look back and you go, what were they doing? I mean, it's so irrelevant to the marketplace. So again, I hope this is something that is just one of those things you have to do to get through a process, not one where something will get held up, because I don't see from an outside looking in. Yeah, I don't see this at all to be that kind of issue. And if they have to make some accommodations for whatever reason, they're concerned about consolidation of customers in a certain segment, I guess. But the realities are that, look, this is normal, part of a process in our business. The business, travel agency business, is still highly fragmented. You don't have any one dominant player or players. So I just don't get it. And I hope this is just a little, speed bump, not a real headwind.
Okay. Thanks for that, Mike. For my tailwind, Mike, I picked up on a couple of articles. One was Expedia extends its loyalty program to Microsoft Bing travel users. This also matches an article we covered on our last episode around MGM and Marriott loyalty points. And of course, ties to, our focus on loyalty points and those being in danger. But what I like about this is flexibility and control of the points you earn and being able to use them in new and unique ways. I think Expedia extending its loyalty program to Bing users, that's really interesting. If you are, starting to build up Expedia loyalty points, we noted in another episode that Expedia had rolled out loyalty points across all of its different platforms and brands. And so I like to see this in terms of, I think it's good news when you can use your loyalty points wherever you're earning them in unique ways. And so, kudos to them for trying something unique there. And we'll keep looking out for unique ways in which loyalty points can be earned and burned, which is great.
Yeah. And it keeps the tourism engine going, man. This is all part of it, and then the positive impacts downstream when the tourism engine is flowing and going and churning along, points being a big, fuel in the tank, right?
Big driver.
It's a big driver and it's great. And those, again, anytime companies can make their, those, like you said, those points more accessible, more usable, more transferable, et cetera, that's all good and good for the consumer. And that's where the focus should be.
All right, Mike, thanks for that. And that is our show today. Thanks again to our sponsor, Safe Travel RX, and we will see you back again here next week. Have a great night, Mike.
See you, Ed.